NWSL playoff picture is taking shape. We have 4 teams that have already clinched. One team has clinched a top 4 spot, but there are still 4 spots up for grabs in the postseason. There's still 3 quarterfinal hosting positions up for grab. Let's take a look at the NWSL standings as we head into this week of action coming up, because we have a lot in store for match day 22. Orlando sits at the top of the table. They have 51 points. They've clinched a playoff spot. They've clinched a quarterfinal home game. Washington, Gotham, and Kansas City have also already clinched. And then point-wise, it's a bit of a drop-off. 10 points between 4th place Kansas City and 5th place North Carolina Courage, with Chicago Red Stars rounding out 6th place, Portland in 7th, and Louisville in 8th place. Louisville on 25 points. And guys, this is where the table gets so tight between 6th place and 11th place. Those 6 teams that are in the middle of the table, there are only 9 points separating them. You could also include North Carolina, that is right in the mix at 32 points. But with Bay FC in 25, with Louisville in 8th place, Angel City 10th place, Seattle 11th, San Diego 12th, Houston and Utah rounding out the 13th and 14th places. The teams that are in the middle of that standing, so between 6th place Chicago and 11th place Seattle, those are bubble teams, because the top 8 teams make the postseason in the NWSL this year. And there's a lot of pressure on those bubble teams to break into the top 8 and to advance. So with just 5 matches remaining, Sandra, when you take a look at those bubble teams, who is one team that you are certain is going to make it into the top 8 of the table?
I'm not certain about a single one of these teams. Are you kidding me right now? That's why they're called bubble. And you know what you can do with
Great
a bubble? Pop,
answer.
pop, pop, pop. It can explode at any moment. It's like this is what the expanded playoff format is for, though. It brings this uncertainty, but also excitement. Who's gonna get there? Who's gonna not? There's also the other side of that coin where it's just like, what do you mean you couldn't even make it at 8th place? Like, who are you even? But it's tough looking at these. I think at one point, if you would have asked me this even just a couple of weeks ago, I would have said Portland is a team that's going to stay there, but they're on a 5-game winless string at the moment. I'm not sold, I think, in terms of a concrete, team to launch themselves into the next one. So I think maybe I'm just going to I'm going to follow my best Aaron West impression and just stick with my Homer hat and go with my local team and say Chicago have got this moving forward.
I love that. Love that for you.
Aaron, what about you? What do you think about these bubble teams?
First off, I 100% agree with Sandra. I don't think you can pick any team as a lock to go to playoffs on out of the bubble. I will say that my prediction is I think that Portland is going to drop out, and if I have to pick one of these bubble teams that is outside that I think will make it, it's Angel City. Something about their form right now, something about a little bit of the confidence around them and the matches that they have compared to the other matches and run-ins gives me a feeling that they might have the best chance to sneak in there. And I do think that Portland have been so poor recently that there's a strong chance they drop out of the playoff spots.
Aaron, Angel City has a pretty tough upcoming schedule that they travel to Washington, then they or they host Washington, they travel to Seattle, then they have North Carolina and Portland. So it's not out of the question at all for Angel City, but where they sit in the standings right now for the LA side, they're in 10th on 22 points. They have to start making up points this weekend. When we get into the match by match preview, I'm going to drill you on that one, but I like your scout for Angel City. It's a good one.
Yeah, I painstakingly went over all these matches and I was like, well, I feel like Angel City has a path. It's weird.
Christine, who is a path for you?
I think honestly, and it's been very up and down, but I'm still believing in Racing Louisville. Bev has me buying in, and I think that at this point, she has all the personnel that she's been needing all season long. It's just a matter of them coming together. I think they are. And so I feel like they are absolutely hunting. For me, I don't see Red Stars winning any of the aforementioned games, maybe the Dash.
Ouch.
So sorry, Sandra, earmuffs. I don't think they're going anywhere. But yeah, I still have a little bit of hope held out for the Portland Thorns sink, and just Morgan Weaver being healthy, I think will help a lot. Obviously, Sophia Smith on and off, not great. So that's a bit of a big fat question mark for me, but she also can't be entrusted with the entirety of their goal scoring. So it's something that they're going to have to figure out.
Okay, so shouts for Chicago, Angel City, and Racing Louisville to stay above or get into that playoff line. When you think about these bubble teams and the approach that they have to the next 4 or 5 matches, Sandra, who might have the trickiest route to a playoff position?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna honestly stick with Bay FC here. I think that this is a team that has found themselves a little bit streaky at times. I would argue that maybe Racing Louisville is also another been one of those streakier teams in the league. But maybe the concept of like being able to scrap out a draw is what's going to be able to get some of these bubble teams through there. There's no opportunity to drop any points. And unfortunately, what we've seen with Bay FC is they're either dropping points or taking them all. So I think for Bay FC in this season, they've got to take a look at the opportunities in front of them. They got to look at Seattle. They got to look at Houston as moments in which they could go in and try to really take over the game and say, hey, these are 3-point games for us. Let's grab them all, because Gotham, Current, and Courage are going to be difficult opponents.
Christine, you're nodding your head. You like that shout for Bay FC with the tough schedule?
Yeah, I do. I feel like they've spent all season trying to play beautiful football, and that's great, but just they haven't always gotten the result, and they've gotten hammered where you expect them to win, and inversely where they just haven't been able to. I mean, yeah, they haven't been able to turn a corner. They have moments where you're like, this is such a good team and they should be able to perform. And then others where they just are too in doubt for me. And that path forward is really brutal. I mean, anybody that has Kansas City in the next coming weeks even with them slipping in and out of form because they're making their little tweaks that they're attempting to do a little bit of risk reward balancing. I still would not want to be coming up against them, knowing that I have so much hinging on this for squeaking into playoffs. Like bubble is like the bubble's bubble for them at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, that's such a good shout for Kansas City. They are hitting good stride right now, scoring in a lot of different ways, and they've got depth with Zenerato coming back. So we're truly talking between 6th place and 11th place right now. But North Carolina Courage, they have not clinched. They sit in 5th place. They're on 32 points, Aaron. And this is a side that it is looking to clinch, right? They have every opportunity, but the gap between North Carolina and Kansas City, just one spot ahead of them, is 10 points. Meanwhile, Chicago is on North Carolina's heels. 29 points for the Red Stars, and the Courage have 32. Should we be worried about North Carolina dropping out of the playoff race?
I think worried might be a little bit strong. I think it's a possibility. I think anything is possible in this league. We've seen that over and over and over again. But I do think it's a lot different this season than it was last season. I think from top to bottom, the parity last season was so close. But I think the top 4 this season have really separated themselves a good bit. And North Carolina is right in that middle. They're right, I think, where they belong, below the top 4, a good bit below the top 4. But I think they're good enough to go on and clinch playoffs and then maybe make some trouble when they do get to the playoffs. But I don't think they're going to drop out. But again, saying that all to say it's always a possibility. We know this league. It's such a ridiculous league.
The chaos meter is incredibly high always. Okay, so of the 4 teams in the NWSL that have already clinched, Orlando, Washington, Gotham, and Kansas City. If you are those teams, who do you not want to face in your first playoff game? Sandra, I'm going to start with you. Who do you not want to play?
Oh my goodness, it has to be Orlando. I mean,
No, you are Orlando. You are one of the
I'm Orlando and I don't want to face someone else.
Who do you not want to play? Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification, teacher. I appreciate it. If I'm Orlando, if I'm Orlando, I don't think I want to play Kansas City Current again. There were 2 very, very special games that took place between these 2 sides over the course of the regular season. And I think this most recent one that kind of ended up being kind of a scrappy 0-0 draw could maybe be a launch pad for a setup that you maybe don't want to see if you are trying to chase something special. And Kansas City seems to be playing now with a bit of pop in that they are looking to not only chase their own titles, but kind of wreck anyone else who's going to potentially disrupt that flow of their own. So if I'm Orlando, I don't want to face Kansas City too early.
Christine, if you're a top 4 team, who do you not want to play?
No, I think that Kansas City is the only. If I'm a top 4 team, so what I could be Kansas. If I'm Kansas City, I don't really want to tussle with Orlando first off the bat. Who I really want is a vulnerable Washington Spirit. If I have to pick out of the top just from first matches on, if they stay as they are right now, where Trinity's questionable with back spasms, they don't have Croy, they're missing a couple of other key pieces. I'd go them before I'd go anybody else.
Yeah.
If we're talking, you're in the top 4, who do you not want to face from the bottom 4?
Yeah.
I think probably not North Carolina. They're the best of the rest, in my opinion. And then just on form outside of North Carolina, because that's kind of obvious, they're just below the top 4. I would say Louisville. I like their form. I like the confidence they have. I think Bev Yanez is the type of manager who can really rally her players and get them moving towards the common goal. So when you get to playoffs, that's exactly the type of team you don't want to face, someone who's united and actually really working together. So of the best of the rest, I think Louisville and North Carolina is pretty.
I'm throwing Bay FC in the mix here because this is a team that is solidifying themselves defensively with Abby Dahlkemper continuing to get more minutes and reps under Albertine Montoya and with this new squad. And they're only coming off a 1-0 loss to Orlando, and they frustrated the Pride in their attack and what they were able to do. Bay is a team that down the stretch can upset a lot of different teams. They can throw the chaos meter through the roof.
I think that's a really good shout because I don't think they're going to necessarily make the playoffs, but they definitely could ruin somebody else's day or two.
We could even see it as early as this week.
The playoffs hater award. You're like, who's the biggest hater?
Like
Bay?
who was the Kendrick Lamar award for this season?